All right, guys, so come back. You've got all of your components colored and covered with that color. And so now we're gonna construct them together. This is our final step. This is a pretty quick one, so it's a lot of fun. So now you've got your little pot with your extra roving in it, and then you have all of your little pieces here. And so once again, it's kind of nice to just have them laid out. So you might wanna just lay them out again. I kind of like to do this throughout the process just to make sure that I've continued on the same page. That way, if you get to the point where you were like, oh, that's not quite what I wanted, you can kind of regroup and rearrange stuff. All right, so you kind of push them in there a little bit. Like I said, we're gonna be condensing these a little bit more as we go, but just to kind of get them placed for the beginning portion here. Boop. All right. And then I like to start from the inside and go outward. So I've kind of got, whoops, push them back in. I've lost it. All right, so I kind of like to look at it. There we go, kind of got them laid out again. And I like to start a little bit more from the center. And so I'm gonna start with these two middle pieces first. And you guys can start however you would like to. I'm gonna move this out of the way so you guys can see this a little easier. So I'm just gonna lay these two right on top of each other. See if I can kind of rotate for you here. Lay these two right on top of each other how I'd like them to be in the center. And then the process for constructing and connecting these together is the same as what we've been doing the whole time. Sorry, I've got a hair on my face. All right, so what we're gonna do is you're just gonna continue to poke, and you wanna just make sure that your needle is going all the way through from one piece to the other. You're just gonna do this in a few spots until you feel like they're pretty well connected. And then what you're gonna do is you're gonna turn it over, kind of holding them as best you can while keeping your fingers safe. You're gonna poke again. Full disclosure, I have poked myself twice today. Some days you do, some days you don't at all. I can go kind of through multiple projects without poking myself at all, and then some days it's just like my brain's just not there. So you just want to construct them together a little bit more. The other thing is, when we construct, I got mine stuck a little bit. When we construct, sometimes our lines where they connect tend to kind of blur together. And so if that's happening and you want them to be more distinct, just follow that line directly with that needle. And that will, it will kind of create a stronger connection right there as well. But also it will create a little bit more of a distinction right along that line where you're pressing with that needle. If you go just straight on that line over and over again, just a couple passes will be all right. And then same thing, and so this one's gonna be a little bit different because it's standing off just a little bit more. So you just wanna be careful, hold it in place again, and then as best as you can from the top, from the side, kind of wherever you get the best hold to start out that felting, you'll wanna just start constructing together. Mine is kind of from the top, but kind of pointing down in towards the other pieces. Even from the outside, if that is the easiest way at first to do this, then work from there for yourself. You just wanna construct all the way through. That will give you the strongest connection so that you can go all the way through to those other pieces. You do just wanna make sure that you are able to make it through from the other directions though as well. So like I said, this is gonna condense quite a bit more than what we saw before. So you're gonna continue to see that size kind of change a little bit. So as you get pieces constructed together, still never a bad idea to kind of come back to your layout and just kind of lay everything back out again. This is where this is the kind of more tedious step, maybe even than the felting, because you just want to make sure that everything is laying in there correctly so that as you continue to add those constructed pieces together, you don't get to the end and are all of a sudden surprised because something odd happened. So if you just continue to kind of push them together and go, okay, this is where this one's gonna go, this is where this one's gonna go, this is where it connects. Like for these ones, because I want them to overlap between each other, it's like this little one is gonna overlap the top of this little section here. And so what I wanna do is I wanna say, okay, well, this one is connected to this piece, so I'm gonna go ahead and pull these out, make sure I hold them together, put it down where I'd like it to be in the pot, and felt just in towards the bottom there. This is where it can be a little bit more tricky because you can't quite go all the way through as easily, but you just wanna try your best to lay it down and get a little bit of that still going, because you wanna just make as strong of a connection as you can. That's gonna make these last a lot longer for you guys throughout this whole process, right? This will be something that you won't kill this plant. You can pass on a plant to people or give them as great gifts and they'll last a long time. I love fiber artwork because it just makes it so nice. So then once again, kind of put it back in the pot. Then I want this one to lay here, so I'm gonna take them out together. Felt them right on top of one another again. Poke, 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 a bunch of times, of course. Continuing, like I said, you can really get some aggressions out with this process. Watch those fingers. It is really easy, especially during this process, because we kind of tuck our fingers to hold things. It is really easy at this point in the process to poke yourself, so just make sure you're still being cautious of where your fingers are at as you're constructing these together. And then once again, make sure you have a strong connection, so go from another angle as well, just to make sure that you have those fibers not only going one direction into the fiber, but the other one's crossing back out as well. And then our last piece for this guy, you may have a couple more, but my last piece here is this one. We're just gonna pop him. Whoop. I'm gonna have to pull this a little closer for a second. All right, there we go. And then poke, poke, poke once again. It's never ending, really. It's just a continuous poking. My husband always laughs because he says I look really intent while I'm doing this. I'm sure you guys have noticed that as well. And then you just kind of tuck them together and continue this too. And then from the bottom, once I get kind of that connection formed, I kind of like to make sure so that it has a little bit more of a spread. I'll kind of push them down onto my foam and then connect the bottoms and smooth out kind of all of that area where they connect. That way I just have a little bit more guarantee that all of those connections are solid and that they're continuing to be made more solid even throughout this process too, right? But smooth it out, make sure that those kind of creases, any gaps that I have, I can kind of fill in at this point by just kind of poking them back together and connecting even more pieces, right? Another word that I'm sure I've said too many times today. Like poke, 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 right? All right, so then once you kind of get those pieces finished, we have our little out of the pot succulent. Then we're gonna go ahead and lay it on our pot. And so you can do this one of two ways. I'm gonna go ahead and I can felt, just because of how this one is laid in and the roving right underneath, it's pretty stuffed in there. I could felt right through this and connect those fibers just by pushing through that piece. You just wanna make sure that you're being really careful, because obviously that pot is a harder surface, and so it could be detrimental and difficult for that needle, and it could end up breaking it if you're being a little bit aggressive. But you can do that, it'll form a loose connection. You can also, and this might even be a better idea, is just pull some of that roving out and just start felting it to the bottom. The more that you can kind of create that stronger connection, the more you just know that this thing isn't gonna fall out of the pot, it's not gonna move around a whole lot. I'm rhyming all over the place now. So like I said, just be careful of your fingers. Again, I've kind of got mine on the side here. Excuse me. Got them on the side, you can just felt that into the bottom, and that will just make sure that as you put it into the pot, that it's really going to stay connected. Then you just push that guy right into the bottom, squish it in a bit. There you go. Boop. Like I said, sometimes it's kind of finicky and you'll move it around a little bit. You might say, all right, I've got a little bit too much roving in now, because now it won't stay put. You can move it back around, stick it back in there again. The nice thing is you can always kind of arrange this a little bit more, push it around where you'd like it to be. And then you have your little felted succulent in your pot to take home. So same thing, if you are choosing to do the snake plant one, it's the same process. You'll get them colored, and then the construction of these guys, I like to kind of do this in a couple parts. And so I'll take one or two of them and construct them together as I'd like them. Same thing, just poke, 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 poke at the bottom, kind of turning as we go, or they'll get stuck in your foam. And then once you kind of get that easy connection between two of them, you can place them on that pot and in that foam where you'd like, and then just gently push them into that roving. These, because they are a little bit thinner, they're going to be a little bit easier to get to just stick right in there. It's not one big mass. And so you can do it that way. Of course, once again, you want these colored before you do this, if you're gonna use this process, but this is kind of our demo one, so it's gonna live with its just white coloring for now. And then as you construct them together, they'll kind of live in that pot together, and those fibers will condense and it'll become one. This one now, if I wanted to pull it, it pulls all of that roving out. And then you can always add a little bit more in as you go. So that is our succulent felting today. Thanks for doing it along with me. I hope we see you guys again soon, and don't forget to post pictures on our page and show us what you've done today. Thanks so much. See you next time. Bye.